What's up? This is Yes here. I got another video, but this one's going to be a little bit different than the typical 100 NL Play and Explains. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a Play and Explain, I guess, of a live session I played yesterday over at TCH Social here in Austin. So up here I put the stakes, 1-2, $500 cap, and the rake. So it's actually a seat fee, so you're paying $12 an hour to play, which is really nice actually, and makes the games beatable at these stakes for like a much higher win rate. But yeah, it's part of what makes playing in Austin so appealing, at least live poker, right? So here's some B-roll of the facility. There's the stream table. And yeah, I think over on the left there's the cage. Here is all the action, and there's the dining area and my table as well. So this is where I'm going to be sitting and playing for 3 hours or so. And for like the first hour and a half, pretty much just getting dealt garbage. I think I hadn't played poker for I hadn't played live poker for up until yesterday, probably like 3 months, and I'd really forgotten how slow it can be. So you're not getting more than 20 to 25 hands an hour, especially if you're playing PLO bomb pots. So the PLO bomb pots, depends how frequently they're happening, slow the game down tremendously. Yes, they're pretty nice, like for your win rate if you're good at them. I'm not that great at them, unfortunately. I'm sure there are a lot of resources you could use, like Jay Nandas or whatever, to get better at them, but I just haven't utilized them. I haven't really spent much time studying them. It's more relevant now since I've been playing online. Anyway, was quickly reminded how slow the game is, like as soon as I sat down. I guess quickly is kind of ironic because, it's an hour and a half of basically playing no hands. And you'll see me fold some pretty hands here, right? Like I get some nice 10-7 clubs, right? Basically, the action at 1-2 is like ridiculous, where it's like, oh, okay, I'm folding ace jack offsuit here. There's like 3 limps and then an ISO to 20, and then a cold call. So this is the first spot, but just want to go over that again. It's like the pre-flop action at 1-2 is so bizarre that it takes a lot of adjusting. Basically, you're just going to be folding a lot. Yeah, people are raising basically a 7.5 big blinds, 5 big blinds. You don't want to do a lot of cold calling in general. You probably could, since there's virtually no rake in this game, but I'd say for the most part, better to play 3-bet or fold. Better to play quite aggressively, since people aren't going to play back with enough 4 bets. They're just going to be playing too passively overall. So a lot of those hands can just get pitched though, they're just not strong enough to 3-bet. Here is the first spot that I end up in, and hopefully some graphics end up on the side of the screen there soon. Okay, here we go. There's an EP limp, and I'm in the hijack, and ISO to $15. So this is a pretty large ISO size. This is generally what people are using, but I think it's good. I think it's a good ISO size in this type of game because people are so passive. If you were to use this size online, players might tend to attack you. You can either use this type of ISO size and isolate an extremely tight range, or you sort of risk getting 3-bet and then having to fold a ton, and you basically risked 7.5 big blinds here to win $5, or 2.5 bigs. But here in live poker land, you can isolate to this size, and you don't really have to really worry about getting 3-bet that often at all. Most people will continue with a passive action like calling or folding, right? So here I do ISO to $15, and the button cold calls, small blind cold calls, and the EP limper calls as well. The action where I paused it in this video picks up on the flop, and basically what action has already happened is it's checked the button, and the button stabs for 25, which is a roughly half pot. Small blind calls, and then the low jack ends up folding here, which you'll see in a moment. And I raise. So there's a couple of things to say about raising here. Basically, so the board, I couldn't remember the suit of the ace, but rainbow board, so let's just say the ace of diamonds, right? This bet from the button, right, like stabbing half pot in position into 4 people, typically, like, you could interpret this as like extremely strong, especially in a lot of online player pools. You'll see people doing this or something like this. I guess they'd likely bet smaller, but extremely strong. This in a live ring, like in a live poker game, right? Like much more merged, much weaker range. Probably worth shoveling money in against with ace queen. That's my interpretation of it. Like all of the players that are playing this game generally are weaker and fish. So a hand like ace queen, I think, is doing very well against the potential hands he gets stabbed here. Like, I would even expect him to flat maybe hands like ace 9 offsuit, ace 10 offsuit. So I think those hands have a very hard time folding. Anyway, facing this action, the button and the small blind both roughly the same effective stack, $300. I decided to raise to 100. I'd be lying if I told you, like, you know, I spent time thinking of the optimal raise size. I was just thinking about you know, how much an ace would call, and then like basically ready to get it in on the turn of river. So it looks like they both folded, and I tipped the dealer and pick up the pot. So another important aspect of the game: make sure you tip the dealer. You know, this is what they do for a living. So the clip you just saw, let me go back for a second. This, you know, after this, right, you see me picking up all these chips. This was a technical error here, like where I ended up not recording a pretty big hand. The hand is going to show up here, but basically there's another limp, and I ISO again, $15 with aces, and the button cold calls. The limper folds this time, and we go to a flop of king 9-3 two-tone. The reason I wasn't gonna like put this hand in, but the reason I wanted to was basically like the flop play. Not only is it crazy, but there's like an interesting decision point here for me to see bet. This is, you know, and this is like a typical reg strategy. I think a lot of regulars online, or in general, like me, even live, right, they simplify to like range checking from out of position in these single raise pots with an in position cold caller. I think that is generally very good, but there is like also some consideration that needs to be given to, like, you know, how the button plays, right? Like, are they passive? How wide are they flying the button? This button player, or the player on the button, is, you know, a bit weaker, so he's flatting likely very wide. I think there's a lot of hands that I expect him to just check back. Like, there's a lot of ace high hands that I expect he always checks back with, so I'm not expecting him to bluff all that much, and I'm not expecting him to like value a hand like that thinly. So it just made a little bit more sense for me to put money in myself. So I continuation bet for roughly 1/3 pot, and the button min raises me. So this is like a very bizarro raise size. I'm basically interpreting this as like top pair, or like maybe second pair, with like a flush draw or backdoor flush draw even, right? That's my laundry machine. That's my washing machine going off. You know, I think I left in the previous video. Let me know about your washing and drying machine at home. Let me know how you like them. But yeah, you can drop that in the comment section. Let's get back to the hand here. Versus this dumb raise size, I'm I'm pretty happy to 3-bet and just put money in versus what I think is likely a pretty weak hand, or like a hand that I have beat, very high percentage of the time. So I 3-bet to 75, and then my opponent legitimately picks up his hand like this, looks at it, looks at the board, puts it down, and then goes all in. So it's like really, I was just scratching my head at what he could have there. He's like double G, like, let me make sure I have like what I think I have, right? And he's looking at it and picking it up like it's a book. I end up calling here. I'm not really that happy about it. Obviously, when I see the showdown, I'm like, okay, this is, never folding versus this guy ever again, right? But, he's saying it's really strong. He's saying it's like 2-pair or a set, right? Like when he 4-bet jams the flop in position, or maybe a very strong draw like Queen Jack of Spades, Jack 10 of Spades, Queen 10 of Spades. Anyway, I call, board runs out, brick, and he tables his hand without me asking, and he shows ace of spades, 8 of clubs, and I'm just completely perplexed by the showdown. I guess he had like a backdoor ace high flush draw on the flop that he was happy to get in with. So, this is, at the very least, this hand is like good promotion for TCH social here in Austin. So that's an interesting one. In the background here, this is just some pre-flop. This is like a spot that was just basically all pre-flop. I ISO ace king offsuit to 15. The button 3-bets me to 50. We're around 700 effective. And I put in a 4-bet to 200, and he ends up folding. So the 4-bet size being 200, I mean, I think it's appropriate at the stack depth, or at the effective stack depth. And yeah, when he folds, I end up showing him my hand because he's like just like some nice guy that I was playing with. I guess I should make a point of saying that I would tend to not bluff in these types of spots. Like I would tend to not really have 4-bet bluffs. Don't think it's really worth it versus a lot of these players, because they're 4-betting they're 3-betting extremely tight, and they're over continuing versus a 4-bet. So I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me to 4-bet bluff and instead just pile money with some strong hands. All right, here we get the up close shot of my hand, and you can see the nice hair on my finger here, which is very appealing. So this is the pre-flop action. I got black kings. I don't know if you caught that earlier, but button's on my right here, and this player is a little bit shorter, and he opens to $10. I am in the small blind with black kings, and basically have two things to consider. One, the button being shorter, and two, the big blind being an action player. So just not like, I was between calling and allowing this guy to raise, but I didn't really see, this guy was so short that I just don't think it would make much sense. I'd rather just play a 3-bet. So play this as a 3-bet. Anyway, I 3-bet to $40, and the big blind cold calls, which is sort of what I anticipated happening. The button goes all in for 100, and I go all in, and the big blind, I guess this is, I'll just play the footage, right? The big blind tanks forever and is basically moaning about folding ace-7 of diamonds. So he shows me ace-7 of diamonds and angrily mucks his hand. I'm like, yo, that's a good fold, dude. But in all seriousness, the big blind's a cool guy. I've played with him for a long time. He's been around the Austin poker scene for a while, so shout out to him. Folds ace-7. My opponent on the button has king jack offsuit, and I table kings. We run out, I think he wanted to run out 2 boards regardless. I win, and I guess just one. So I stack this guy and yeah, just pretty much smooth sailing. There's a lot of like, you end up in a lot of like bizarro spots like this at 1-2. I think people just play 1-2, and then like if they get short, like they get bored and they're ready to just basically gamble with their stacks. So they might have a hand like King Jack offsuit or something. Anyway, this is the next spot here where I limp from EP. So this is a, I don't know how you, like, I think limping is very bad in some games. I think it's very good in others. I think in this specific game, there were some fishier players that were ISOing pretty wide. And, when that's the case, I think it's nicer to play a limping strategy because there's just like a certain amount of leveling that goes on with back raising them. And then on top of that, like, just more dead money to pick up. So I limp, and then there's a couple other limpers as well from later positions. And the action's on the big blind now, who isolates to $5. So I'm limping for $2, mind you, right? So it's like a bunch of people limping for $2, and he looks at the dealer, he goes, $5. He makes it $5, and at that point, I look at his stack, and he ends up having he had like $70 behind or like $60 behind. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put this guy all in. So I raised to 100. I'm a bit deeper with the other players that have limped, but these are also fish. So in game, I'm not too concerned about them like trapping the big blind or something like that. Like they're basically just limping some crappy hand most of the time. So I raised to 100, and everyone folds, and then the big blind looks at me, and he's like, actually, let me just let this play out because there's some like more live poker antics that go on here actually. Where like the big blind raises to $5, and this action player, the 5 seed, snap calls the $5. He basically hums the $5 chip into the middle, and I hadn't completed any action yet, so like I raise and I basically tell him like, hey man, just take the $5 back. Usually the dealer makes him like leave it out there. I was like, dude, just take the $5 back. So he goes ahead and he takes all $7 back, and the dealer's like, no, you need to put the $2 back. Like, just take the $5 back, whatever. So rakes in all the money, folds to the big blind, and he looks at me. He's like, "Oh man, just because I know you got aces here," he says something like that. Like, I know you're just too strong here, and he shows me ace queen, and I mean, this guy is basically nursing like a $65 stack. So like, I don't know what the point of raising a 5 is there, or like what he's doing, but he just shows me ace queen and he mucks it, and I tell him, okay, bro, like good fold, I guess. We were flipping, and I show him the 10s, and yeah. So I think we got one more hand here. This one, another dumb one. Like a lot of these were just like basically all pre-flop. Wake up with ace queen offsuit here. This hand, there's a $5 straddle, so I'm gonna put the pre-flop action up here. But yeah, there's a $5 straddle and there's 2 limps. So I think this guy in the blue shirt limps. There's Seattle Mike. He's an Austin regular, real cool guy. And then the cutoff limps. I'm on the button. I isolate to $30, so 6 straddles. Once again, not too worried about getting back raised, not too worried about like people 3-betting me for the blinds. So pretty happy to ISO to like some of these larger sizes. You do need to be a little bit careful with the $5 straddle because stacks are shorter effectively. Anyway, the big blind, who is an action player, the one that was tanking with ace 7 of diamonds, and snap calling the $5 and over limping, etc. He 3-bets to 60, and he's got a $125 stack. And I just say, okay, let's just get it in. Let's just go ahead and get it in. He goes, okay, let's do it. I jam, and then he calls, and he wants to run it twice. I say, sure. And we end up chopping versus the old King 10 offsuit. So I guess sometimes you're looking down at 2 Broadway cards and you think it's time to get it all in. The same can be said about both of us, actually. So, yeah, I think that was the last fun hand I played. I got dealt some other garbage afterwards. And yeah, let's see. I think it's kind of slow. Yep, okay. Here's the cash out. So, played about 3 hours and, maybe 70 hands total. I won $545, which is nice. But yeah, live poker overall, a lot of fun. If you are trying to get into the game, I recommend playing some 1-2 live. It's how I got into the game. I would not recommend doing that as like a job. So that's sort of like my message at the end here. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about some of these hands. I'm sure some good promotion for the old TCH social here in Austin. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and be sure to drop a comment and leave a, hit the like button as well. So thanks.